We do not own the rights to anything or any music that's heard during the duration of this podcast. Also, a lot of these shows will have explicit content. So if you are not a fan of any cursing or profanity, you may want to walk away, but that does not mean that every show will consist of such.
Are you serious? Like, we at season 7? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 seasons. Yeah, season 7. Magic number. If you know, you know. I'm not gonna go in depth with that, but yeah, this will be a very positive season. I don't know why and what's making me say that, but everything's changed. I'm still, like I said, stuff is very fluctuating now. I found that the connection with things is to get people to talk, as well as me taking time to talk. So you'll notice it, especially when you hear the first few episodes of this season. But it's just about sitting down and just having good talk, good conversation. Pass the message. Y'all know they ain't going nowhere. If you know, you know. If you've been around for a while, you already know how we give it up. But just hang in there. The content's amazing. The moves are even more amazing. And just put yourself in the right headspace to get this information. So hope y'all enjoy. What's going on, y'all? How's everyone doing? Episode 381 of The Pass is here. I'm your host, BT, with yet another episode. And wow, I have some updates. I'll get into that information in just a bit. But definitely as I'm always known for saying, this is going to be a heavy show. A lot to share. I know I'm always saying like it's a lot to share, a lot of things to discuss, but this week I can definitely stand on and be clear in making you aware that quite a bit of information is passed along. So I will go into everything and we'll go from there. So and I did not plan it this way, but I planned it this way, kind of, because let me give, and y'all know I'm always real, so many of you will know or be aware, it is 4th of July weekend. However, it started a little early in some instances where work, I kind of had a plan. I initially had a plan to record my podcast on Friday. That's the main gist of it. In theory, I'm glad I did not record on Friday, because in doing so, I would have missed out on a lot of the free agency madness that happened on yesterday evening. And it was kind of, like I said, it was kind of crazy. It was kind of interesting because I literally was like, yeah, I'm going to pack up, go to the library. Got my show pretty much ready and written out. Most of my key topics that I would get into. And then I was like, nah, I think I'm just going to chill, which, for the most part, I stuck with the chilling option, and the chill vibes was cool. Like, it won't no hit or miss one way or the other. But when I started to see like the updates come in of, trade, not trade, but like the NBA free agency is about to start. Bleacher Report, they did their live feed with with a few gentlemen who they do a lot of content on TikTok, and I was gonna watch theirs, but I was like, Bleacher Report is gonna pretty much throw every story to me as it all happens. So I was able to keep up that way. So I was sharing a lot of that through my sports group, and then this morning, right before I recorded, I was able to get what I would consider a good screenshot of pretty much everyone's free agency movements, motions. Some players are staying put. Some players are going to different teams. So I'm just going to kind of go through and name everybody, name the values if there are any listed, and then we'll have a brief discussion about that. Fred VanVleet, 3 years, $130 million, going to Houston. Kyrie staying with Dallas for 3 year, $126 million. Jeremy Grant, biggest one talked about as well, 5 years, $160 million with the Portland Trailblazers. Kyle Kuzma staying with Washington for 4 year, $102 million. Chris Middleton, 3 years, $102 million, staying with Milwaukee. Draymond Green, uncertainty whether he was going to stay based on Mike Dunleavy leading things off, but he's staying 4 year, $100 million. I'm stretching with what I'm going to say next, but this might be his last big bag going forward because he's kind of hitting that veteran. I call it the veteran minimum. I won't even say veteran minimum stature. Is more so unless you're paying him, unless there's something that's going to come with the pay, then it's kind of like you've gotten it. This is a good one to secure. Porzingis, they officially announced his pay for 2 years, $60 million with Boston. I believe we talked about the trade last week, but they did officially do the signing of his contract for them. Cam Johnson got his extension with Brooklyn Nets, 4 years, $108 million. Bruce Brown Jr. was a big shocker a little bit because I think everyone was expecting him to stay with Denver, but he's going to Indiana for 2 year, $45 million. Gives him a chance to kind of establish a foundation. Speaking of, and it's not going to be on this list, but I'll add it now. Tyler why am I saying Tyler Hansbrough? Shoot, and I know the kid's name. That is not his name because I just saw it. Sorry, y'all. Y'all know usually I am pretty prepared. This one I'm not, and I'm taking full responsibility for it. Let's see what we got. Tyrese Halliburton signed a 5 year max extension with the Pacers. And that, if you think about it, that came on the heels of him getting the Pacers, not only getting the Pacers in a good position, basketball wise, but also him making the All-Star team. Because whether anybody really talks about it or not, the jab that Wally Szczerbiak took at him as far as not being an all-star, I think that was kind of like motivation in the best way. As you hear the term chef's kiss, like he definitely made it known, like, all right, I see how you giving me the energy, like I don't belong here, but let me show you that I belong here tenfold and through. Jacob Poeltl, 4 years, $80 million, staying with Toronto. Dennis Schroeder, 2 year, $26 million, he's joining Toronto. Gary Trent, staying with Toronto, 2 year, $26 million. Herbert Jones, I believe he's going to be coming out of his rookie contract, staying with New Orleans for 4 year, $54 million. Joe Ingles, 2 year, $22 million with Orlando. Really going to be interesting to see how that works out. Couple free agents that are going to be with Phoenix. Some are staying with Phoenix. Some are joining Phoenix. Yuta Watanabe, Shimize Metu, Damian Lee, Drew Eubanks, and Keita Bates-Diop. Gabe Vincent. This might be, and I'm going to briefly talk about this one because I want to, like I said, I want to get through everything, and then I'll, matter of fact, no, I'm just going to mention it and then I'll go back. Gabe Vincent, going to the Lakers, 3 year, $33 million. Rui Hachimura stays with LA, 3 year, $51 million. Torian Prince, 1 year, $45 million, also joining LA. Cam Reddish, 2 years, they haven't given the amount. Lakers. Karis LeVert, 2 year, $32 million with the Cavs. George Niang, also with the Cavs, 3 year, $26 million. Javaron Carter, Chicago Bulls, 3 years, $20 million. Kobe White, going to be staying with Chicago, 3 year, $40 million. I believe that's after his rookie contract, because I think he just finished his rookie contract as well. Reggie Jackson, 2 years, $10.5 million, staying with Denver. Seth Curry, going to be staying with Dallas, 2 years. They haven't given the amount. Kevin Love, 2 years, $8 million, staying with Miami. Josh Richardson coming back to Miami, where he got drafted, 2 years, getting the minimum. Shake Milton leaving Philly, going to Minnesota for 2 years, $10 million. Troy Brown joining the T-Wolves, 2 years, $8 million. Nikolai Alexander Walker with Minnesota, 2 years, amount to be determined. Trey Jones going to the Spurs, or staying with the Spurs, 2 years, $20 million. Julian Champagny, 4 years, $12 million with the Spurs. Derrick Rose, possible mentor for Ja Morant, 2 years, $6.5 million. O'Shea Brissett, 2 years to be determined with Boston. And those are all of the transactions and movements for day one of the free agency talk. So 3 things I'll go into, because there were 2 early ones that I addressed, and then there's one that I was getting ready to talk about, and I was like, let me wait and I'll give everybody's information, and then we'll have some talk with it. So I understand Houston Houston wants to do what they can because they're trying to build and create build something big with Houston. 3 years, 120, whatever the amount was. I'm not, and again, let me make sure I'm clear. I'm not against anybody getting a bag or getting the opportunity, because in the NBA, you got to get it where you can fit it. So that's not what this dialogue displays or designs of what I'm saying. But Houston, if Houston, and I'm saying we as a Houston fan, if Houston is trying to look at the thought or idea of the draft, well, not even the draft, but like trying to get free agents to come to Houston, if we put it all in the Van Vliet, then the question becomes, how do we handle getting more free agents, let alone does this make it pretty evident and clear we're not going for Harden, which I'm not against, because I personally don't think Harden would be the solution to get us to a better position right now. And I've said this as a Houston fan, Houston's goal is to build and get a team in place that can compete at a playoff level. It's not about trying to win a championship. Let's be 100% clear on that. The closest chance we had to that was the year we played Golden State, when Durant was in Golden State, and we had Harden and Paul together as a backcourt. And it was kind of good because you actually were able to get Harden to play more off ball. And that was a big deal, whether you think about it or not. But like I said, we'll see what Van Vliet does. I mean, he's been averaging close to 20 for the last few years. He just recently made an All-Star appearance, not this past season, but the season before. So he earned it. He earned his opportunity. He earned his shot. The thing I'm keeping my eye on, or what I look at about all of it is, because I mean, granted, he had won the championship with Toronto. It was Toronto's shot to pay him or let him walk. Toronto paid him. Toronto had a good run with what they had. You had Scotty Barnes. You had a couple good core players on the team. Pascal Siakam. The list goes on and on. Anunoby, they've been talking about whether he's going to be staying with Toronto. He comes up as a topic every year in some way, shape, or form. And then it always comes down to, are they really going to move him, or is this all just talk to be talking? So, yeah, like I said, we'll look at this and circle back to it and see what the end result becomes of this story. But I don't have like a compelling wow factor or an ooh-ah factor behind it, just because I don't know. It is what it is with how Houston's identity is in such a disarray right now. They're trying to figure out if they're going to re-sign Kenyon Martin Jr. So there's that. So that's number one. Number two, Kyrie did all that talk. I've just accepted something, by the way, before we continue. I've realized I've been doing podcasts. Before we go on and continue with this, I've been recording podcasts for close to 300, over 300, almost 400 episodes. And every time I record, I'm always like, oh, let me make sure I get like my headphones and I can hear everything. And I'm like, Brian, just put on earbuds. Like, just wear some simple earbuds. And I have, I think, like 3, maybe 4 pair. The ones I have now probably might be the most inexpensive yet most solid investment of earbuds that I have. And they're multi-purpose. So just, let your imagination run wild. But, and I say that only because it's it reduces ear fatigue. And if you aren't a big audio person, you'll probably be like, I don't understand what that means. But trust me, you want to be able to wear something or utilize something that doesn't make you feel like you're wearing something for a long period of time. So that's minutia, but just wanted to share that. All right, so back to my second point. I know I'm like all over the place, which y'all know how I do. If you've been listening to my show for years, you know this is nothing new. Kyrie, so much talk came up. Oh, Kyrie's possibly going to go to Phoenix. Kyrie might go to Houston, or I don't even think Houston came up. I think it was just like they were putting ideas or thoughts out there of what Kyrie would end up doing, and he stayed in Dallas. To be fair, Dallas is one of his best opportunities, because if you look at the team that Dallas has now, the only trade-off and the only X factor of it now is if he stays in Dallas and they do any other odd trades or moves, does Kyrie then say, you know what, I want out, I'm ready to go to a new team? Because, I mean, right now, if you really look at it, Kyrie's push now is to get another championship. He would like to get one more championship before he decides to call it quits. And I don't think he's calling it quits anytime soon. But as we talk about and as we notice constantly with sports, Father Time is undefeated. So it's like guys are playing, but I mean, you get your window of opportunity to go for your championship. And if you get one, you get one. If you don't, then you got to just look forward to the upcoming option of walking away from the game and being okay with it. So, yeah, I just thought it was funny that he did all of that. Like, and I ain't even gonna say he, but like so many rumors circulated of like him possibly leaving, and it was in the end he ended up just staying and signing an extension. Which I'm not I'm not against it, but I was just like, the push of it was very like, really all of this just for that. So yeah, that's number 2. Number 3, and as I've told y'all before, I'm running a group, so I'll talk about the big 4, because since Nashawn Jarrell has been on my show, I've pushed 4 groups. 4 groups. I have a space to sport, a space to music, a space to sport, a space to music. What's the other one? There's no way. Oh, and a space to tech. My bad, y'all. I may rename men's health or men's wellness. Might name it space to men. I don't know. I've noticed a space 2 thing is working. I want to do one called a space to read, but we'll see, because I don't want to make that a group and then I don't give it any attention. But in the space to sport group, they put up the post about Gabe Vincent, and I'll be honest. If it was any other team, sure, get your money, get your opportunity. This one, you getting the money, you getting the opportunity, but you're a point guard that's not going to be utilized as a point guard, because as we all know, LeBron is one of the most ball dominant point guard type players in the NBA. And I think it's a mixture of and I'm freestyling with what I'm about to say, so do not come for me if you hear this. He's an NBA A-type player. And I've lately been latching very close to the term of the A-type player, or I'm sorry, a person who has an A-type personality or B-type personality. And whether we think of it or not, in the NBA, the same applies. You have a lot of players in the NBA who are stars that know they're stars, and when it's time to step up, they step up. Then you have a lot of players who think they're stars or they carry themselves in the star role, but they're not ready for the star value or the star factor. Case in point, I might be reaching with this. Durant has the A-type personality, but Durant prefers to be a B-type player. Like, he knows he can go out and do what he does. He's Kevin Durant, but he's also not pressed to be that guy in all circumstances. He's available to be that guy, but he's okay if someone else is that guy and it's not like the end of the world. LeBron, no question, A-type. And I know people, like I said, again, I may get misinterpreted for that, or I may get some flack for it, but I'm just calling it what I see it as. Why this is relevant is because you're bringing in a player like Gabe Vincent, who, in so many words and so many thoughts, helped the Lakers. I mean, not the Lakers. He helped the Heat make the push to get to the finals. But it's a different team. It's a different system, different offense, different style. I'm just hoping they don't have him not be the ball handler for the team, because then it becomes, what was the purpose of bringing him here if he's not going to be utilized? Cam Reddish, you know what you're getting. You'll get a shooter. Rui Hachimura didn't have a bad shooting stint this past season. Like I said, the Lakers just played against Denver. That was just what it was. So that's the day one of free agency has been very like high eye opening. I'll put it in that term or in that verbiage. We'll have more coming up soon. It will likely, I'll tell you in advance, because I know next episode I won't be talking. We may have some sports talk here and there with my guests that I'm having on, but it'll predominantly be a business/tech cast. So I'm just putting it out there early. Not really much I can tease or give until we get to that point. That's all I have on sports. Ta-da. We spent 20 minutes strictly on sports, so nothing new to see here. We'll go. I have my preset notes, so I'll go through what I have and we'll make it a flow and we'll go from there. So I found myself beginning to become a podcast enthusiast / podcast snob. I'm really investing more time and energy into podcast listening, ironically as a podcaster, but also for informative purposes. Like, I've gained a lot of information through various podcasts. I won't deny or disregard that. Something I haven't learned this from podcasting or listening to podcasts, but I'm realizing this more and more. And this is something that I can kind of openly dialogue or say out loud on the podcast. And I've realized, so to give context, many of you know that I keep and manage a bullet journal. I've been using the bullet journal method since 2019, I believe. And for whatever reason, my bullet journal becomes an all-purpose notebook. And this year, I've realized that I have to use my bullet journal for bullet journaling. And that's whether it's journaling out thoughts, whether it's writing out what I need to work on and or complete, whatever the cause or option may be, I need to use it to that capacity. And I have not done the best job of that. And I'm blaming nobody for it but myself. Like, I've looked up, Ryder Carroll did some videos talking about weekly reflection, and I'm trying to learn more of what the weekly reflection consists of, because I think using that or starting that will help to generate a newer routine with how to plan not just a week but also the month, and things of that sort. So that's been helpful. Like, listen, I reference that because with listening to podcasts, I've learned quite a bit. I've shared with a couple people online that I've become like the huge Mel Robbins enthusiast with her podcast. I listen to her podcast every chance I get. Between her podcast and Cal Newport's deep work, I'm calling it deep work, but I don't think that's the name of it. But the deep, like, his podcast has been like really on point with helping me with a lot of things, especially with like trying to get more organized. As I look at my desk and I'm like, what am I doing? Just trying to get simple things to have like a routine and a process. And one thing that he shared, and it stuck with me because I think I even put up a post about it. Doing deep work versus doing shallow work, you notice the difference between the two. And I'm really starting to like hone in on that. So yeah, become more of a bigger podcast enthusiast. Still going through my finishing stages of converting, or not converting, but getting podcasts out of Spotify follows and putting them into the podcast app as a play. And I think why this will be beneficial, and this might, to some people, it may or may not make sense, but if when I explain it, you'll see what I mean. You don't want to have your musical cue dominated by a podcast, because then if you pause a podcast or you're like playing it or whatever, it's not going to be safe. You'll still have it at the same point, but it's not the same compared to if it's like a dedicated application and you're like, oh, I got a podcast. Let me finish listening to this podcast first before I go into like starting a new one. So I'm learning that process too. And that's kind of reminding me, which was my theme for last year, which was unfinished business. So working hard on that. Mental maintenance update. Big 5. And my bad, I'm gonna have to do a quick little bit of clicking and updating because it's been a minute since I've done these. So let me get my board for reference. Wow, I haven't done this in a while. So because I'm looking at the numbers that I gave. So a friend of mine, her and I, we do an accountability session with each other, and interestingly enough, the numbers I put in were not the most pleasing, but hey, it happens. So the Fab Five, mental right now is at about a 6. Professional is at an 8. Personal is at a 7. Creative is at about a 4 or 5. I've not been creating as much as I normally would, and I'm blaming nobody for it but myself. There's a huge, immense amount of accountability that I'm beginning to realize that will play an important piece in my day to day, whether I realize it or not. I'm working, like I said, I'm working through this thing, man. And I think a lot of us, like, we always feel like we're pressing, but we're not pressing at the pace we need to. And my feeling right now is calm. I think it's calm only because I'm just learning to, put the work in, get the effort done, make things happen, but also like chill for a little bit, slow down, let the process work itself and not be so pressed to like have control of it all. Friend of mine, he and I have had some convos over the last couple of days, and he's even had to break it down to me about, some conversation he's had. And the main thing he shared, and I'm hoping he's okay with me sharing this publicly, is sometimes we do things on what we think our time, but we hear the term about time being borrowed, but it's not our time. It's like time is going to work how it's intended to work, and what we need to work on or what we need to get done is going to be done when it needs to be done. And sometimes we don't realize the intensity or the impact of that in our day-to-day lives because we're, in constant go mode. So yeah, listen to more podcasts. I'm going through, like I said, I don't want to no longer, all right, listen to more podcasts. Maintenance. I won't really put anything because I wrote down how to work through the ways of life, but working through the ways of life, I guess it's kind of like a follow up of what I worked on. I know last week I mentioned that I was going to update you, like write out some stuff, and I wrote out a good amount. I'm still going to be working on that for the next couple of days because like I said, I'm out for a bit, which is a good thing. Kind of gives me a chance to reset because like a lot of people are like I had someone the other day ask me like, what did I have planned for the 4th? And I was just kind of like, I don't know, it's another day. Like I don't really give different holidays like that push for whatever reason because it's It's a business. It's one of those things where it's like it's cool on one side, but on the other side, it's like, is it really like worth me pressing to like do anything now? If somebody offers an opportunity for me, like, hey, you want to come hang out, or hey, I got something going on, sure. Like even today, like I doubt they'll do it, but like if I go to like I'm going to see one of the local soccer teams play. If I go to that game and they happen to have like, oh, we're doing like fireworks after the event, then cool. I'll hang around for that. Like that, something like that, I'm all right with because it's different. But I'm not someone that's like, I'm not lurking for the event. Like the event's gonna come when it's intended to. I guess that's the approach I have about everything. So, I got checked last week. And I'm going to talk about this because y'all know I got no shame. This is the one thing about being a podcaster I've learned. And it was interesting because someone else would have checked me on it. They just weren't sure of my reaction to being checked on it. So I'll talk about the whole thing. A few weeks ago, I put up a post about being an escapist. And how I'm a professional escapist and I run away from everything. And if something I need to do, I just don't do it. Or I find every reason not to do it. And so one of my friends who's known me for like a long time, we're having a conversation back and forth, just texting, checking in or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm like a professional escapist. And she was like, you have to change your ways of how, like if you say what you speak over yourself is pretty much what you're telling yourself you are. And when she said that, one thing with me, and I've shared this numerous times, I'm a person when someone says something, I sit with it. I may not give like the most immediate aggressive, like, oh my God, I'm feeling a certain type of way. I may not give that type of response, but I'm sitting with what you said. Like I really took heed to what the words were that you just mentioned out loud. And I bring it up or I say it in that term because after that conversation or after she said that, my literally the next thing I said is I'm no longer an escapist. And it tied me back to I'm always preaching this almost every week on the podcast, if not every other opportunity I have, which is be impeccable with your word. Be very aware of what you say and how you speak over yourself or how you speak over others. And it definitely put light on a lot of things, not just as we're nearing the halfway mark of the year, but also just on a day-to-day, walkthrough of just life as a whole. Because I really did not, like I said, I didn't think much of it, didn't put much into it. But then when I really sat and looked at it, I was like, hold on. I need to really be cautious of what I say. And like I said, someone else that came to me and talked about it, they weren't sure. Like, and I'm gonna talk about this on the show because I got no shame. As much as people may think I'm not, I'm probably one of the most approachable people you'll come across. And that's not on ego. That's not on like, oh, I'm tooting my own horn. I'm telling y'all because it's just who I am. But it's more so just substance to the truth of just, I really try to make me as a person be as inviting as I can to other people because we need that inviting / safe space with others. And at times we're so worried about how people are going to react to what we say or what we do that we don't do things in the process. And one thing, and I'm gonna mark this now because I'll remember to do it when it comes up. I'm gonna share a link in the show notes from Jim Quick. I'm looking to read his book pretty soon. Probably will be in August, maybe sooner. But he talks about these different hats that we wear when we're putting into situations or in circumstances. And I'm not going to talk about the whole thing, but the main thing he brings up is like at the end of the day, we're going to make our decision, which is the blue hat. And if you watch the video, you'll see how he breaks down like what we do and the other options of what we're given is to like, oh, I think I'm going to do this. So I'm not really sure if this is going to be a good idea. This might have the largest risk. This might have the lighter risk. This might be the most extreme. This is what someone else from the outside gave me as a source or a perspective. But at the end of the day, you're going to make your decision. Like, you have to make your decision, live with your decision, and be okay with your decision. And at times we don't find ourselves being okay with the decision because we're worried about how everyone else is going to react to what we decide to do. And at the end of the day, it's our decision to be, it's our decision all along, and it's been our decision all along. And we sometimes don't realize how powerful our decision was all along. If you missed that, scroll back a couple seconds and just re-listen to it again. Two more things. Brief update, and we'll pass the message, and I'll let y'all know about it. Let y'all on, man. We'll make this a chill 4th weekend type of deal. Anyone who knows me knows that I've turned into like a timer addict. So in the last, I guess you could say last year, maybe 2 years, I've ordered or owned, I've had or owned 4 different timers. And my original timer that I bought was a Baseus. So let me backtrack. Many people, which I'm not against, I'm not one of those people who's like, no, you shouldn't do it. Many people use their phone as a timer. Many people use websites as a timer. All good options, all valid options. However, sometimes you want to use something that isn't forcing you to be as technologically adaptive to what you're using. So sometimes you need to find alternatives. I want to say it would have been the spring of last year, maybe later. I found Baseus, which they have a timer that is right up my alley. It was a digital timer. You pretty much have to, so you load 3 batteries into it, set your timer, hit the button, it starts time. It'll do the countdown. Now it has 2 settings for it. I'm going to paraphrase this as best I can. They have 2 settings of, if you twist it for a good while, it'll handle the minutes. And then if you wait a bit and then start twisting again, it'll handle your seconds. And then you can set it and go. It also is a stopwatch in a sense. It's not going to be, obviously not by seconds, because it's only handling minutes. It's not going to handle milliseconds like on an actual like timer, like a stopwatch. It'll solely do counting up or counting down. So I got the first one. Didn't know if I had the first one when I had moved. And so I was like, well, I need a timer. So I got another timer. Got the second one. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think the first one I got off of Wish. And I got it in September I got it not too long after I started, or around the time I was starting the service test. I get that one, have it for a while. Fast forward to last year, probably about this time, a little bit after, I get the second one off of Amazon, which is probably my favorite out of them. And I use that one. It has the ability where it can sit upright a little bit. It's got like a little bit of a like tilt. You can have it tilt up, and the base, you can sit it. It's got a magnet, all that type of stuff. It also has the ability where it's an eco feature where if you aren't using it, you can just flip the switch and it doesn't matter if you press the button, turn it, do anything. It's not going to cut on, which hands down, I like that one. Then a couple of months ago, I went on Temu. Everyone talks about Temu for their reasons. And Temu had a timer that I've used, and I do like the timer, but it's similar to the one that I already have. And I'm also gifting it to someone else because I was like, well, it's a pretty big timer. And so in the last few weeks, I've been constantly looking at this timer, because anyone who hears me talk about timing and routines and block times and structure, they'll always hear me talk about Pomodoro. So I've been trying to find a timer that can do Pomodoro, but still give me the other options of, running it as a regular timer. TickTime has their first version of the timer that I constantly kept seeing the first one. And every time I saw it, I was like, it looks nice, but there's something that I'm not feeling about it. One, and this is me being picky, so all my tech folks know how I am with this. It used a micro USB charger, which even with I love my Yeti to the core. But if the Yeti has not already done this, if they make another version of the Yeti X, please make it a USB-C. USB-Cs no one's really, you can't use a lightning port for a microphone, but just use USB-C. Because micro USB cables, all it takes is for one of the prongs to not plug in properly. Now you don't have a microphone working, and you out back. And the bigger part of it affects on a recording level. It affects how I've had some times I recorded and the recording didn't come out good because the cable. So I think about stuff like that. But the first version of the TickTime timer used a micro USB plug, and also I don't think it had the best battery life, and I might be freestyling. I don't think it also didn't have the Pomodoro feature. So TickTime brings out the second version of this, which is the Q. I did a kind of like a brief overview of it on TikTok. I did like my first version and talked about the other timers like I just did. It was a little bit longer on this video, but I broke that down on a second video of why I like this timer. And I will tell you, using this timer is helpful on so many levels, in just the sense that you can have the ability to be structured and productive. Your counterpart or your battle, whether you know it's going to be a battle or not, is going to be your and I want to make sure I say this openly and honestly as I can. Your battle, more than anything, is going to be your phone. Because we, as people, whether we claim it or not, we know what we need to do. It just comes down to changing the habits of what we're doing to get what we need to get done. And I know I'm always bringing this up as a conversation, and it's not on some like, don't use your phones, it's the worst thing in the world. It's more so, use it for what you need to use it for, but when you need to take breaks and you have stuff you need to work on the things you need to work on, and literally put the phone down and, most importantly, away. Case in point, I received my timer on Wednesday. Came in the mail Wednesday. When I got home, I was like, oh, I got the timer. Like, I went out, self-care, chilled, did whatever. And then when I got home, I was like, oh, word, I got the timer. Let's get to it. Let's see what it's all about. Got in, learned, got comfortable with the timer, used it. Then Thursday was my judgment day, T day. Let's see what you got. Let's see how you can use this thing. And so I used it, and I put in my notebook brief review, but y'all know that don't work with me. I used the timer, and in the process, I noticed it's like, cool, you got one habit handled. Now, as people have talked about in Atomic Habits, which, by the way, 2 weeks from now, July 15th, we're starting that book. So if you have a copy, join. We will be reading. I don't know if I'm able to do this. I may use the platform to do some audio reading. We'll see. We're gonna try some stuff, man. Y'all know I'm all about creativity at the end of the day. May do it as kind of like an introduction. Might, who knows? So I have anyone who knows me knows I'm always talking about the Bagby brand. Well, I have a Bagby in my room where I normally work. Problem is, it's no benefit to have a Bagby sitting on a door if you're constantly getting up every so often, taking the phone out and using it while you're supposed to be productive and using a timer. So there's those little things of like the personal habit stacking, even down to, hey, if you want to use the Bagby to charge your phone, cool, charge your phone, but you can't charge it in the same room you're working. Little stuff like that makes a big impact. So that's my overview of it. Like I said, a timer you can set up to, now all 4 timers that I have, the maximum amount of time you can set them for are 99 minutes and 95 seconds, which means you can pretty much set them for over an hour and a half to just work. And that feature alone is like the selling point for me with all of the timers. And also, and I didn't say this either, all of them have the ability where, because I'm normally always just leaving them just available and showing like, hey, once it's done, just flash the timer. I can see it. We good. But you can turn it, you can set, so the first 3 timers all are ambient sound, or there's sound. So you can have it where it'll play a sound just saying beep, 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 and you can have that going until you turn it off. The other 3 timers also have a silent feature, so you can the timer will go off and you won't hear it. This one, however, is the first timer I've had that has you can have it where it will vibrate the screen, like not the screen, but the table. You'll feel like a little small vibration on the table, like, okay, the timer's done, you're good. But you can also set it where it just doesn't have any sound at all. And I like features like that. Also, each side of the timer it'll show the amount of minutes its default set is for, and it will show if you long press how long it will set for. So for instance, if I'm using a timer, if I'm on the 10-minute side, if I long press, it automatically sets the timer for 45 minutes, and it's fine. But you can also touch it single, and it will increase by 10-minute increments. I think, yeah. So, I think the max for each side is usually like an hour. Yeah. And the one, if you ever look at getting one on the timer on each side, it shows the amount. One of the sides is going to be a 5 and it's in red. If you long press on the fingerprint part for about a second and a half, it turns on Pomodoro. And the Pomodoro part is, like I said, that's the selling point for me, because what it does is it'll show, and I had to learn this the hard way, because it shows these little ticks, and I was like, oh, those aren't ticks, that's actually a number. So on the side of it, it'll show a 1, but the 1 will be shown sideways, and then it will have like the timer under it counting down. And then once it's finished, it'll do the 5-minute break. You take your 5-minute break. And early on, I'm going to share this, so I'll make this important to share with you all. If you have an opportunity and you're supposed to take a break, please use your break to take a break. Do not take a break by sitting and doing nothing. That is what causes us a lot of fatigue unknowingly. And I think that is where we're, as people, still kind of figuring things out for ourselves, and what we need to do and what we want to do, for the most part. So try to be more aware of that when you have that moment of opportunity to take a break. But yeah, now some people will say this, and this is just me talking out loud too. The other timers weren't that expensive. I think one of them might have been about $12-13. One might have been less than 10. I think the other one was less than 10. This timer is 40. Now, the reason it's 40, obviously, it is a rechargeable, and that was my point I was going to earlier. This is a rechargeable timer. So it comes with a USB-C cable. You plug it in and you charge it. And after it's fully charged, you can pretty much use it up to, I think it has 20 hours usage time, and it's it's a pretty, I want to say it was like 180 hours standby time, but like I said, I've gotten it Thursday. I have not charged it yet. I think I was going to attempt to charge it, and then I was like, I don't need to charge it right now. Just let it, if it runs down, it runs down, and then do an overnight charge. And that's something I always remind people, like, if you need to do like charging of your devices, charge them overnight. Because in most devices now, they have the equipment built in to know that, hey, I've hit my maximum charge point, so I don't need to charge any further. So yeah, that's my overall abbreviated yet open dialogue of a review for the Tick Time Timer. Like I said, it will be used. You will be seeing it with me a lot if you know me personally. I'm looking to even invest in buying a little small drawstring bag. I've literally, and this ain't even being funny, like I've literally been online like looking at accessories that I can buy that come with drawstring bags, just use the bag to carry it around, because this will be used and will be valued to like get me in a more productive state, especially with the second half here, like awake and ready. So that's what I have for that. Everyone online has been talking about all of these different tumblers and different water containers. There's even one video. I don't know if someone tagged me in it or if I saw it online where they were talking about the Stanley water jug, and how it's almost like when people come in and they had a jug and they put it on the table, but it wasn't the cup. It was like these different buckets and different items that were just very large. Talk about, oh man, I got to drink all this water. Woo, child. And it's like the reference of the Stanley, because I've seen a lot of people who, I didn't actually work with some people who personally own one, and they're, like I said, they look nice. Price point though. And then I ain't gonna say, let me not say price point. I just don't need it that bad. So I've looked online, I've looked on, a couple TikTokers have shared some on their shop. I personally have not bought from anyone's shop. I don't plan to and don't see a need to. However, Walmart has their version of it, and I've been using this now since Wednesday. Literally, I've put ice in, I've put my water in for a while, and hey, it's a safe space. I've used I saw how the straw was set up, and I was like, why is the straw? And I'm like, I don't know if I need to use this in it. I'd put the straw in backwards, but I've set it up now where the more flimsy part of the straw for the Ozark version is out. So it's good on that. The BPA, as far as it being non-spill, I don't really run into issues spilling wise too much with stuff. So I don't really think that to that extreme. Because most containers I buy, I'm usually buying something that got like a twist the top on and make sure they ain't opening for nothing. And usually I've had no, like if it falls, it's like, oh my God, it fell. Oh. But yeah, with this, like I'm always aware of where I keep stuff anyway. So I haven't had that run in with it yet, thankfully. But it has if I take the straw out and rotate the little cover over it, now it's covered, and it pretty much, unless something crazy happens, it's not, water shouldn't spill out. But I'm also, like I said, I'm also someone, because of how I consume water, I don't really look at or worry with that being a thing. But yeah, long story less long, I found an alternative that's a much more useful resource for drinking more water. Now, granted, anyone who knows me, anyone that's been on my podcast, they know I'll still pull up with a water bottle by default, because it's just me being me. But yeah, I think I found something that's personally motivating me to drink more water. And why this is ironic is I had a container. I bought it probably a few months ago, about 3 or 4 months ago. And at the time, I was using it. It was a nice, it's a Tao brand water bottle. It's a 64 ounce. So I thought that I was like, oh, this gonna just get you 8 glasses, you good. But I would sit and like trying to drink out of it. It was like I'm gonna feel like I was in the desert or something, but I won't. But with this container, it's like it's got the hand, and that's I think that's why I like this Ozark one too, because it has the handle just like the Stanley, so you can pick it up. I don't know if they did this on purpose, but it's like intentionally for right-handed people. But I digress. There may be a way to get and when I say left hand, I mean right-handed. I mean it as when you finish twisting the top on, it only the hole on the bottle on the top is facing you. So if you hold it by the handle, you'd be holding it in your right hand. Now, I guess the counterintuitive way is you put it in your left hand, but just be drinking at the top of it. But hey, to each his own. But yeah, this is my new method to getting a larger intake of water, and so far it's working. Like, I'm not going to sit here and even fool myself into saying it's not, because it has definitely been resourceful since owning it. So if you've been keeping up with the show, you remember on episode 380, I talked about possibly getting some news that I wasn't prepared for. While recording, I didn't get anything. After recording, chill, didn't hear anything. That same night I recorded, which was Saturday of last week, that evening, around about 9, I got the call that I didn't want. And why it hit hard, and I'm not gonna put any personal information out there to the extreme, but I will say, and if I've shared it already, and I've shared with some people who I know what's going on, but why it hit close and why it became like a really heavy thing is between him passing, between my other family member passing, they both passed due to heart attacks, as well as someone who I'm friends with on social media putting up a status related to having a heart attack. It all just hit like at one time. And I didn't know, a lot of times I'm not the most reactionary person, and I also don't do dialogue very well with sharing, because everyone's got their own things they're working through and pressing through. So, being considerate. But this one I had to really like reel it in and like get back on course and get structured and get things in order. And I want to say it was Monday when I updated, because my boy was, like I said, he trains, he's been training me for the last 7 to 8 months. And I updated him on what was what. But I was like, I gotta talk. I was like, I'll tell you more about it when we meet in person. So when we met, I told him, and he could just see it on my face. Like it was like I carried the weight of the world on my back. And I've had some pretty solid workouts since being there, but that was one of the first times I really like felt the workout difference. I've cried a couple times. I've talked about it a lot more than I normally would with a lot of people. I wouldn't say that, because I wouldn't call it a trauma dump. I kind of like blind unloaded with coworkers, and I felt bad. But I wanted them to understand why I may or may not have been like as in the moment or as present or as aware as I normally would be. And they were understanding, and I was appreciative of that. But I'm recording or just talking about this portion of the podcast because I really want to be a better person to my family. And I don't think it's not that I haven't before, but I think now after this happening, it kind of was just like, you really gotta be precious with the time you're like granted or provided to be here. So that's I don't have like any in depth. I just want to make sure I at least updated you all on that part, because I know I talked about it last week, so I want to be sure that I like say, hey, here's what happened, so you're not thinking, oh, what was going on, what was the end result. So wanted to give that information, or give that piece, a story as to what's what. The message I'm going to pass along as we near the end of the show is, don't feel like no one's seeing you try. Or I'll place it, take it a step further, because I've noticed more people who I'm close to say this, and it's disheartening at times to be the person that's like, I'm paying attention. I may not react to everything or give the engagement that you're expecting, but I'm noticing. But people see you when you're giving your best effort. Everything is not going to be a status. Everything is not going to be a video. If I'm being 100% honest, I have been to the gym. I've been working out gym wise since November. I have not once recorded a single audio, like a single video from me at the gym. The only thing that I've posted gym wise, and it was because it was a personal achievement that I didn't even expect would happen, but it was one of the best feelings ever, was when I was stretching after the gym, and my shirt was at the time light blue, but ended up being a dark blue Virginia Beach shirt. And I laid back, and it was like I was disconnected for like a couple seconds. And the reason I'm detailing it the way I am is because I almost didn't want to share that. But the main reason I did was that was my personal way of seeing myself push to another level of what I'm trying to work on. And like I said, at times you really don't think much of the work or the effort, but then when you realize like you gotta put in to get out, it shows. And like I said, people may not see it on the surface, but I've shared with some individuals, I'm like, it's little things that I don't think about that really make an impact. Because folks know. Like, you don't need to, everything doesn't have to be a status. Everything doesn't have to be a live. Everything doesn't have to be a video. Everything doesn't have to be an update. Some things, it's beneficial to have them out there, but for the most part, it's going to be known whether you think it needs to be known or not. And that's what I'm beginning to see more and more, become more and more important, is what needs to be known or what needs to be seen is going to be seen, whether you pressing the issue of it being seen or it becomes seen in its own way of light or whatever. So that is what I have for y'all today. Be safe this weekend. If you are doing any fireworks or anything, have professionals do them. if you are going to do the little small simple joints in your neighborhood, because I've been to people's houses and I've seen it, and I don't care. Like, look, it's 2023. If you know, you know. If you're doing what you're doing where you are, cool, that's fine. But space, distance, safety, and logic. Like, just use them interchangeably this weekend. That's the other message I guess I'm passing along. Do not just do something just to be like, oh, we're going to go outside and fire up some smokes and not be considerate of everybody around. Like, just be aware. It's like, I think the biggest thing I'm honing in on. So that's what I got. I've probably shared this already before, but pen and paper. I think I've shared it on just an individual, a general topic. But yeah, pen and paper. That's all I got. Until next time, y'all take it easy. And like I said, we got a dope show. I got a very good show coming up next week. That's really the best teaser I can give you. But until then, it's the Paz signing out. Y'all take it easy. Another episode is completed. Thank you all for listening. If you want to check out the podcast, you can go to buzzsprout.com. If you're looking to do podcasts, you can go to buzzsprout.com. To get to my podcast, you'll go to the pastbtpod.buzzsprout.com. If you're looking at getting a microphone, I always suggest getting the Blue Yeti X. That is the microphone that I use. If you're starting off and you need something more affordable, Samson Meteor, it's a worthwhile investment. And there are other microphones that are going to be simple enough. My big suggestion I tell everyone whenever looking for a microphone, be sure that your microphone has the ability to have you listen to your audio or listen to yourself as you're talking. It will make a big difference in your editing and your podcast. Also, most importantly, and I tell people this is a tip offline, but I'm giving this in the final listen or at the end of the show. Drink water while recording, and also just drink water in general. But drink water while you're recording, and the reason why, you'll be surprised. All right, see y'all on the next show.